This is episode 18 of the Wash Talk podcast with Fanny Boulou of Antenna Technologies and Kanika Verma of Tara. Welcome to the Wash Talk podcast series from IRC. My name is Andy Narracott, and this is the podcast where we open up the discussion on what the wash sector needs to do to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now let's get started. Whilst universal service by government is the goal, entrepreneurs can play an important role in building and meeting demand for safe water for households in the medium term. But the landscape of household water treatment options and their suitability in different contexts is a minefield for government and the private sector to really understand and introduce sustainable and appropriate solutions. Today we're talking to two guests who can tell us about this landscape and the role of government in supporting the private sector to enable adequate water quality at the point of consumption. But before we dive in, make sure you head over to ircwash.org/washtalk to review the show notes and the associated resources. So without any further ado, let's jump in. Hello everyone. Today I'm talking with Fanny Boulou and Kanika Verma about the landscape of safe drinking water options for households. So Fanny is Water and Sanitation Hygiene Coordinator for Asia with Antenna Technologies. Antenna Foundation works in science on essential needs for the BOP, which includes the sales of chlorine generators and other business models around safe water. Fanny comes from an international business and environmental sciences background, joining Antenna in 2014. And Kanika Verma leads the Sustainable Enterprises team of Tara, which stands for Technology and Action for Rural Advancement, and that is incubating a social enterprise that supplies safe drinking water to low-income communities. Kanika is an applied economist by training and used to run her own financial investment firm in the US. So I'm very pleased to have some very strong safe water experience on the show today. So welcome, Fanny.
Hello, good morning.
And welcome, Kanika.
Hi, Andy. Good morning.
Great. Well, thanks both of you for joining me today. Antenna is involved with the Safe Water Project with IRC and other partners, I believe. And this is working on building the businesses that are serving the base of the pyramid. Now, Fanny, maybe you could begin from a global perspective. Why is there not already a big demand for safe water at the base of the pyramid?
Well, because it's an extremely complicated topic. Water is considered for a long time a free product for people with in fact two issues. One at the supply level, which is complicated technology, plan drawings and design, and at the demand side, very little willingness to pay. So to bring a market for water at the BOP, you need extremely affordable products. So therefore, quite a fine-tuned business model for that, and it's very far. And it goes. I mean, it's the whole. Issue of the BOP is you need to understand your consumers, know their purchasing power, but also understand the triggers that makes the supply, the purchase. Sorry. So you need to change behavior, which is extremely costly for especially. Kanika will mention it, but especially in India, where you have such a broad and diverse population, and it's very also expensive on the long run, not only installing the material, but also maintaining it and also providing knowledge along the line. So at the end, water is a headache. It's a lot of risk because you have climate change issue, you have political issue along the way. You need very high volume to survive and very low cost. So at the end, when you accumulate it, it's just a nightmare for business. So they don't go. And you add on the top the BOP, which is very, very low cost, when you have your equation.
An equation of poor demand, low supply.
Exactly.
You've laid it out, extremely well about this, need for affordable products, which we're going to talk about more on today's episode, and those triggers, which are so dependent on culture and human behavior, and the expense of providing it as well. I mean, Kanika, does any one of those jump out at you from looking at it from the India perspective?
No, absolutely, Andy. I mean, just to sort of share with you, India has more people in rural areas, about 65 million living without access to clean water than any other country. So the magnitude of the problem is huge. So for large companies, it's extremely difficult to distribute clean water to the last mile because, India is not a homogeneous country at all. So, last mile accessibility is extremely difficult. The gaps are currently, being filled by some local suppliers, but it's extremely unreliable, even wasteful to produce pure or safe water. And when we sort of wanted to launch the Safe Water program, we wanted to look at a technology solution which will help us produce and distribute locally through a network of small businesses that can be created. And that's where our partnership with Antenna Technologies emerged. However, as Fanny's already mentioned, there's also extremely low demand. People have not even internalized, although that's changing in the last few years, have not even internalized the need for safe water. They think that getting diarrhea or getting sick in the summer season is a way of life. They don't understand that safe water or access to safe water is actually a human right. So there was a lot of focus on social marketing for behavior change in the program.
Yeah, well, that's what I was wanting to dig into. I mean, this demand needs education, which is very expensive and quite hard for businesses to pick up that cost. Now, some would say there's a role for government in this to, raise that demand for safe water to help businesses. I mean, is that the only? I mean, would you agree, Kanika? Is that the role of government, or do you think is there other more pressing needs for government in the provision of safe water?
No, I think Fanny's already mentioned it. I think the government has a very strong role. In India, per se, they make a lot of political statements about water, but they do very, very little from access to safe water. In fact, most of the funding for even access to piped water has not been utilized. And even though the government has worked more on maybe community-driven models, setting up water systems at railway stations, but in terms of household access, there's not much done. And I think it's definitely something connected to, be part of the government spending, because the kind of burden on the resources due to the sick leaves and generally, our lives being affected is huge. So it's definitely a priority for the government.
I mean, yeah, in the case of India, that's a shame because obviously government is well funded, obviously, and as you say, funding has not been utilized. So it's not just a matter of funding. It's as you mentioned, very political. I mean, Fanny, looking more globally, do you know aware of any examples where government has worked closely with the private sector to raise the demand for safe water?
First of all, I think for the government is a key enabler for social enterprise to bloom. But if we come back to the human right of water and sanitation, this human right has been added to the UN General Assembly in 2010 with all the other human rights, and it sets the responsibility of the governments to realize the human right to water. The government are accountable for their water quality, and I think there is a huge change that came with the new SDGs. That now that we have in the SDG 6 the indicator of safe drinking water at the household level, we do have an agenda. which was never the case until 2015. So we really are living a new period where now government will really have to address that it's not only a source that is protected, like a well, or that you are a safe source, but that you have also safe water at the household. However, as Kanika has mentioned, it does not happen, and it will take ages to go there. Therefore, the application of affordable products, which we call household water treatment solutions, that are like a range of family of products that are cheap but certified, and that we ensure that they're working. And this is where the government is needed to allow products in their country and to review and to make sure that and monitor the business that are doing. This is also a huge role of the government. So they do have this role of enablers, supporters, creating demand, doing a large awareness raising campaign, because for a company this is just a killer cost, right? Like this is what Antenna is supporting for Tara. Like we say, okay, we fund your social marketing expenses, because we are in a way replacing what the government should do on a much larger scale. But it's not a priority so far. I hope it will change, and it should change with these new indicators. And I just wanted to add, I don't know if it goes there, a huge problematic that social enterprise faces in terms of safe water is emergency. Like this is country there are country facing lots and lots of risk all the time. Emergencies coming there, and on a very regular basis, and emergency is flooding the countries with free products. There are also lots of NGOs delivering free products, which are killing all the activities of Tara on the ground. So because it's unfair subsidy. So we also have this collaboration with the government. Of course, emergency needs an immediate answer, but at the same time, working with local social enterprise would be a way to support them along and to help them grow.
So we need this obviously very clear humanitarian emergency and domestic markets, as you've said. From the domestic perspective, how can governments take stock of all of the water options out there, with the safe water options for household, including, chlorination and ceramic filters, and promote them? I mean, is there any examples of where that's been done before? Maybe, Fanny, you can elaborate on that.
This Ethiopia case is quite interesting because indeed the government is not purchasing the different solutions, like here it's filters, but they have reviewed what is available on the market, and then they propose different options to the consumer, but the consumer has to buy. The government has no fund to pay for all of them, but they are enablers for BOP consumers to get a solution at the household. So this is the only case I see where there is a real collaboration of the government on a long-term business or sustainable perspective. And it has been owned by there is a willingness at the Ministry of Health, at the Ministry of Water, and at the water utility itself, where you have a lot of stakeholders on the way, and it's extremely complicated.
Kanika, is there any example in India where the government has taken a proactive step to refine what options can be available to the local market?
Yeah, so the government has recently, in the last few years, launched a program called the Swachh Bharat program, which means Clean India. And with respect to that, they have on their website mentioned a few solutions that are out there for household treatment. And Aqua Plus, Tara's product, has been mentioned on the website. I mean, I think that's a big step in itself, that the government has at least a bouquet of solutions that it's sharing with the market out there. But in terms of recommending solutions or being proactive and aggressive about it, I think that's another step in itself. And I think the government has also launched now, after many years of understanding that there needs to be a more a massive behavior change campaign, has launched a campaign on that as well. So I think it's something that they're sort of taking steps towards, but there's a lot more that needs to be done.
I mean, can you maybe elaborate on how governments can do that, or their supporting partners, to determine which solutions are good for which situations?
One thing that the government should definitely do is to empower local decision making. How do you get communities? How do you create a discourse with the communities to come together on the availability of clean water? And I think there are several examples that have happened at a very, very micro scale that has sort of supported the whole cause of creating safe water solutions. And I think there's definitely, that's definitely a solution that we should look for. It's very interesting, Andy, but chlorine tablets are widely available in India, free of cost from the government. But instead of seeing that as a competition, we realize that most people don't use them, either because of the efficacy issues, because each of the tablets had varied efficacies, or because whatever is available for free is actually not accepted by the base of the pyramid. I think the government needs to understand that the base of the pyramid is empowered, has the right to make a decision making that's good for them. And if the government could probably look at supporting the many solutions that are out there in terms of delivering the solutions to the last mile. I think logistically the government has a lot of role to play for providing the solution. Just to re-emphasize the point about rooting the solution in the community, 2 years back in the state of Uttarakhand, about 8,000 community members had built their own water supply systems, which actually led to benefiting about 1.5 million rural residents. And this is a brilliant example of how strong community involvement, reduced the cost of the system itself, curbed the leakage of funds, and also created a huge savings for the state, creating a win-win solution for the community and the government. And I think we need many more such solutions to go to scale.
Can I just add something on that? This program appeared in WHO, and WHO, in its main mission to provide support to the government, has a program called the scheme. The scheme is an evaluation, a scientific evaluation of all the household water treatment solution options that are on the market. And at the end, the products that are accepted as our international product that are mostly from the West, that are very expensive, and they have not analyzed the delivery model. So the best star products are products that are extremely expensive, but there's no analysis of the model that will be applied on the ground. So we are here in a very interesting period where we see that there is a need for standardization to help the government to choose, but at the same time, there is a very strict, if we apply the strict rules, the such products cannot roll out. It will always stay a product for the rich that people bring for the poor. So there is a paradigm here that needs to be to evolve.
Yeah. Kanika, maybe you could share with us briefly Tara's model.
So as I mentioned earlier, Tara's focus was always on reaching the last mile. And in order to do so, increasing demand was of extreme importance. We went through a period in the first 2 years where we focused on actually really understanding the base of the pyramid and their needs and their aspirations. This is a growing market. The aspirations are, growing faster than the livelihoods or the jobs that are being currently created. So we sort of designed our social marketing to create local influencers and local influence centers that could affect the behavior of the participants. At the same time, to make the supply strong, Tara's emphasis has always been on creating decentralized local models where even local jobs and livelihoods can be created. And with an extremely challenging and complex space, we added that complexity to our model. But in order to tackle that, we created what we called a system of micro-franchisees who would go for door-to-door services and ensure that the delivery is given on time. And we also have to understand that the base of pyramid and respects service and needs better services. It's something that we've learned in our work all in the last few years, whether it's energy, whether it's water, there is demand for service. And in order to ensure that these micro-franchisees make enough money for the model to become sustainable, we actually created a bouquet of basic need products, not only providing just water solutions, but trying to capture the customer's attention and wallet through a bouquet of basic needs like energy, water solutions, even nutrients were added to the portfolio.
That's great. Really interesting to hear how you've managed to do that, and that can be really instructive for so many others. I think we're going to have to leave it there. It's been a really great conversation. Thank you both for your perspectives on this topic and coming on to the Wash Talk podcast. So thank you, Fanny.
Thank you, Andy, for this nice coordination. Very nice.
And thank you, Kanika.
Thank you, Andy. It was an absolute pleasure.
That was Fanny Bulu of Antenna Technologies and Kanika Verma of Tara in India. Thanks to both of my guests for speaking to me on the Wash Talk podcast. I hope you liked it. And if you could do one thing, I'd ask that you share it on social media and use the hashtag WashTalk. Don't miss the next episode in a few weeks, but until then, thank you for listening.